Good morning, campers, and welcome to Radio Camp Half-Blood, a Percy Jackson read-along podcast. I'm B.
And I'm Zach.
And this week we read chapters 3 and 4 of The Lost Hero.
Yeah, B, and I am so excited because I get to give the chapter of this week, and as the master of, I want to say I can kind of be in like Rick Riordan's humor range. Are you ready for the name of this chapter?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Piper gets armed.
See, that's like a pretty literal one, actually, but I'm into it. I mean, the thing is, though, Rick Riordan, he's interesting because he doesn't have like a very specific naming convention. He just kind of likes to be jokey, I guess, or like a little tongue-in-cheek, but sometimes he's straight up literal with his chapters too, so it's like...
Yeah, I mean, the other one that I was thinking about was I crash land into the lake.
Yeah, something
along those lines.
Usually, I think it's very Rick Riordan to like name a chapter after a specific like physical event that happens, even if that's not the most important thing, like you said, like that when they crash in the lake or when she passes out or something.
Yeah, no, the other one I was gonna do, but that was more of an in-joke of our podcast, was Piper meets a serial killer. So you'd have Rachel Elizabeth there. But then that's an in-joke for us and doesn't work within the context. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a bit much. Yeah, that's true.
Like, there's plenty that I thought of. There's one that I have thought of, but I don't know if it's going to come full circle for me. Like, oh, that's going to be so good, and I can't wait for it, but we'll get there. So, B, what did you think of these two chapters? Because one was really short, and one was very long.
They don't really feel like two chapters so much as like a little sort of intro section to what is the ultimate chapter. Like, they feel like the same chapter, basically. They could have probably even been one chapter, I feel like, because I mean, I don't know, the chapter 3 isn't super necessary in my opinion. It's like mostly just like filler stuff about talking about what like Camp Half-Blood is, like all of that stuff.
And I totally agree with you. It feels more like an interlude more than anything, because it's more like, we're getting into the camp, we crash, and then they kind of have to like reintroduce the characters to like what camp is, what camp life is, and all the terminology, which I was thinking about this again. The beginning of this book series is a very condensed version of The Lightning Thief, where it's like exactly beat for beat.
It absolutely is. Yeah, it's so quick though, the pace of it, and it's kind of hilarious too because they have a lot of the same beats where they like explain Greek mythology stuff, and I feel kind of it's like an interesting experience for me because when I first read The Lightning Thief, I was like out of my depth. I was like, Percy, you know, I didn't know what was happening. I wasn't familiar with the lore. And maybe some people would go into this series like that. I mean, it's kind of designed, I think, to be both, you know, something you can read as a sequel to Percy Jackson and the Olympians, but also as this sort of standalone thing that if you saw it at like a Scholastic book fair, you wouldn't be totally confused.
You'd probably want to pick it up and try to read it. And when it comes down to it, what I like about this is that, again, I'm looking at this both as a fan, but also let's pretend that I've never read this for the first time, and it hits those beats very, very hard. And I love them. My favorite thing about this is, as we get to the first two chapters of this, is that they allude to a lot of things from the original series, but they don't give any spoilers away, such as like Selena dying, like how she died, how about like Chiron, as well as like other things that I really liked. Like they kind of talk about, they address things, but they don't blatantly say it. Like I was waiting for the part where they talk about, oh yeah, so my boyfriend Percy and I, like, we went on this crazy adventure, and, you know, he became a god almost.
That
like,
context exists, which I really like. It's sort of, I'm kind of enjoying this book more than I enjoyed The Lightning Thief, and I think it probably does have something to do with the context I have. Like, it feels steeped in, like, a lore that I understand. There's, like, a context to the story. I know who Annabeth is, and it's kind of cool to meet a character who doesn't know who she is, and, like, what's her first impression of this person who I'm very familiar with.
So my general understanding, I think why you're enjoying this a lot more, is when it comes to Percy Jackson and we're getting into Heroes of Olympus, we're now in like a lived-in type of world where we know everything about it. Like everything's already established.
Yeah.
And for us, like, it's just adding new things, because I love, my favorite parts of these chapters is kind of exploring camp after that war and kind of like what's happened, what's changed, because we already are introduced to a new camper, Butch, who is a son of Iris, the rainbow goddess. Like crazy things like this, which we're not used to, and I love that.
Right, and that's a nice thing too, is there's the continuity of the last series, so you see like what comes to fruition from the promise that the gods made to Percy, all the stuff, this is like a time skip to the next summer. So it's not so far ahead of time that it's like everything is different, but there are subtle things that are different. There are more campers, there are new cabins to accommodate the new campers. There's like subtle differences. Even Annabeth it's really cool to see her in this role cuz she always seemed capable, but now she's like truly like this. I don't know. I kept imagining like practically an adult in this scene, like in her scenes, because she's so like capable, like this head counselor walking around like an old hand, and she's always lived at Camp Half Blood, but she has a different energy to her now since she's gone through this whole quest.
Well, we're also looking this through the context of someone that hasn't met Annabeth, and she's a person like Annabeth is trying to help Piper. So it's like this reintroduction.
Right, she's like an oblivious child, so it makes sense that she seems very capable in comparison.
Well, there's that, and also there's no bias when it comes to it, because when Percy Jackson comes to camp, she already hates Percy, so you have a different type of interaction when it comes to Annabeth, and they slowly become friends.
She seems smart, but he's like, oh, she doesn't like me. Well, this is like, Piper's like, oh, wow, she seems really smart, and I want to be friends with her, and she seems like she knows what's going on, and I'm a horrible person who's going to betray them. We'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll get into it. And that's what I like about this, is because for me, what I love most about these two chapters is this is the first time we actually get a female point of view character in Rick Riordan's world. And what I love about it is that when it comes to, like, I think we've talked about this many years ago when, Percy Jackson turned into a guinea pig. And it's like, when it comes to writing any characters, like, especially like, certain genres, you can have, teen girl literature, you can have, teen boy literature, but at the end of the day, what I like about what Rick Riordan does so far with like his, female point of view characters is that they're very honest, and they're not like, I hate everyone. I was expecting like Piper to be like, I don't like wearing dresses and wearing pants and playing with knives, but she's the exact opposite of that, and I kind of like that. Like, there's like a little different to her.
Yeah, she doesn't have the not like other girls' energy, which some characters have when they're like a strong female character or whatever. I like Piper a lot. She feels very complicated but likable. She has
a conflict.
Yeah, she has a lot going on. I mean, we find out some of her backstory in this about like how she was as a presumably human child, going from school to school, as is kind of the norm for a lot of demigods. We find out a little bit about her abilities and her like misgivings, which are kind of both the same thing.
And also the most interesting one about this is you actually have the internal conflict of all the memories that she has with Jason were all fake because of the mist, and she's trying to like tackle that in an interesting way.
Right, yeah. So I also like the way that this book is written because you get kind of more of that internal feeling. I don't know if like Percy Jackson really got so cerebral with the analysis of what Percy felt. Like there was sort of like a description of his feelings, but it usually didn't get so, I don't know, emotionally truthful, which is kind of a nice difference, I guess.
The way I'm looking at this, B, is I'm trying to analyze it like, okay, this is obviously a YA teen book. Percy Jackson's very obviously middle grade, and like those changes, because we talked about in the first chapter, like these are more personal problems, and there's actually a really interesting quote.
I think that's also why I like it better. It feels a little older.
Like a good example of this is actually like when they're flying in the chariot, and Annabeth calls them half-bloods, and I actually have the quote here because I thought this was interesting. Like, half-blood, Piper was immediately on guard. She hated that word. She had been called a half-blood too many times, half Cherokee, half white, and it was never a compliment. Is that some kind of bad joke? Like, they actually have to have a talk about this, about like, what is a half-blood? Like, oh, it's just a demigod. That's just what we call them.
So that's two differences from the way that Percy Jackson would have written that. Because for one, it's more like emotionally vulnerable, I guess. It really like describes like an intense emotion she's having. And two, it like addresses a real life sort of prejudice that isn't exactly something that they talked about. Like we talked about this before when we were briefly introduced to Piper and the fact that she's Cherokee and how she was treated like garbage by people because of horrible, I guess, racism or hatred towards indigenous people. So it's it's a bit of a change of pace. It feels like both more emotionally mature and more mature in subject matter, which I appreciate. It feels a little bit less like silly, cartoony, like we're going on a fun adventure. Like that's kind of what The Lightning Thief was.
What I like about this is, like, especially going from this quote, is that Rick Riordan was kind of already doing that in The Last Olympian, where we're trying to examine all the weird, wacky things. But now, like, we're examining things much differently from a different person's perspective that doesn't like the word half-blood. Like, for me, I like that you have, like, that internal conflict of, like, well, we're going to start questioning a lot of things. Like, some people might like the word half-blood, while other people might take offense to it in different ways. And, like, how do we kind of grapple that? Like, again, Rick Riordan in Percy Jackson would be like, oh, a monster would hate this. Like, Tyson would probably, like, I don't like to be called Cyclops or something. But it wouldn't be from an actual camper, whereas we have an internal conflict of why they feel, these mixed emotions about being called this word, and they actually explain and articulate why they are.
Well, yeah, it actually does a very good job of sort of exemplifying the difference between the world of the demigods and the world of people, right? Because that word has a very different connotation when you're talking about a demigod where they're not trying to be hurtful. Well, Piper had only ever heard that in the context of someone basically saying a slur to her for being half Cherokee, and like that's a very different thing. And I kind of liked how that like just exemplifies how these two worlds sort of exist together. I know we talk about Harry Potter a ton, but it's sort of like the Muggle versus
it's like Mudblood
Wizarding world, yeah, and the Mudblood thing. But just in general of like how they have like these different like cultural norms and words for things, and what a word might mean something completely different to someone who's at Camp Half-Blood versus someone who's never been exposed to this world before.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, a good example of this. There's an episode of Star Trek about this where this is just how serious Star Trek is, where Abraham Lincoln gets transported to the USS Enterprise.
Of course.
And because it's the future, like, he accidentally says something like a slur to, like, Uhura, and she doesn't understand what he said because in the future no one uses, like, racist slurs, and she like laughs it off because she's like, no one uses those words anymore, and even Abraham Lincoln apologizes for it. Like, there's like things like that. It's like you're looking at two separate worlds, and I kind of like that we have to examine like what the word half-blood is, because we have our show is literally called Half-Blood.
Right, that's true. I'm sure there are people
that probably hate that word.
Who hate that word, yeah, like who saw the title, or I guess even the title of our podcast, or saw that word in these books, and that was their first association. Maybe they were like Piper. Maybe they were mixed race of some kind and had been called that. Like, that's not always a good word to hear. And I don't know, I kind of like that it acknowledged that.
Yeah, and I like that they kind of examined that. And, as we get more into the chapter, we get Piper to be more fleshed out, which I like. I think the best thing I love about Piper, as well as we get with Jason, is that they're more fleshed out characters already. They're not just cardboard cutouts. They're not all the same person, which I like. I love how they all have different personalities.
No, they're pretty distinct characters already, which is nice.
Like, I know we joked about how, like, Jason, Piper, and Leah were kind of like the cardboard cutouts of like Grover, Annabeth, and Percy.
Right, that they
but
were
as
kind
you
of
like
the same.
really get into like the nitty gritty of it, they're totally all polar opposites in many different ways.
No, they're very different. Like, I would say that Piper isn't like
Annabeth. She's not a proxy process.
No, exactly. I mean, she's like Annabeth in that she's a demigod, and they do commiserate about things that they have in common and whatever. But as far as like their personalities, they're totally different.
It's apples and oranges.
Yeah, exactly. Just because she's a girl demigod who's a protagonist in this doesn't mean anything. So I think we're going to get into the summary for Chapter 3. So remember, we did Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 for this episode.
Yes, that is correct. So, B, what is the summary of Chapter 3?
Okay, so a few bullet points. First off, Piper starts talking about a dream, but she does not say what the dream is. A voice came to her and told her some stuff, and she's like, that's why she's kind of not surprised by some of this, because she was warned about it, and it mentions the name Half-Blood, but she didn't really understand it. So that's kind of early on in the chapter. I feel like they're not going to really explain what that dream is about until a little bit later, but that comes up multiple times, both in Chapter 3 and in Chapter 4. We get a little bit into Piper's head about how she's feeling about Jason and the fact that he doesn't remember who he is, or more specifically, maybe she doesn't really know who he is. but that's more of a chapter 4 bullet point. Pretty sad because she's in some way she's like Annabeth in that she was like kind of pining for Jason after a while, and finally, I think the quote is like, finally got the dope to kiss me or something like that.
Got the dope to kiss me, and we had like a couple weeks of bliss.
Yeah, and then now she's finding out that like he's not really her boyfriend or doesn't remember, so that's like a sort of mourning process for her. I like that you get her perspective right after we get Jason's chapter. It's like very interesting to see his perspective as someone who doesn't know what's going on, and then her being like, I know you, why do you not remember me? It's kind of tragic. I hope we find out soon what the deal is with Jason.
Because Jason's a very mysterious character, as we find out, like, in this chapter, because he's got, like, a tattoo of some sort, and we'll get into it.
Well, that's chapter 4. So Annabeth talks to them a little bit as they're on the way to Camp Half-Blood. She describes some things. That's where that scene happens, where she says the word Half-Blood, and, you know, Piper bristles at that because she doesn't understand the connotation there. They meet Butch also, who's a son of Iris, so that kind of opens the door to us talking a little bit about how there's campers from like the children of other gods other than the main gods that used to exist at Camp Half-Blood. So yeah, Annabeth, obviously daughter of Athena. Butch is a son of Iris. We already knew about Annabeth if we read the last book series.
I was really confused about that. Who's Annabeth?
Yeah, it's so that little lines like that reminded me that, you know, this is somewhat structured to describe to new readers what's going on. So you're not going in blind. If you didn't read the last series, it will contextualize things enough. It is funny, though, to read it as someone who knows who Annabeth is, to be like, I'm the daughter of Athena. Like, we know.
Wait till you meet our friend Emo. I mean, yeah. Wait till you meet our friend Nico, the emo kid.
Our friend Emo, I mean Nico. So they're chased by more of those storm spirits while they're on the chariot with the Pegasi. That's, I don't know, they're, I guess, reacting to the Pegasi like that. It's funny in a way because much like older campers, we're so acclimated to this world, while in Percy Jackson, I related more to Percy, like, oh, wow, this magical world, and now I'm about as blasé about the Pegasi.
You're just like, wow. No, it's more like, the first time you go into, like, Hogwarts, you're like, oh my god, this is so whimsical, but by, like, the last book, you're just like, oh god, I hate it. Can we leave?
You're like, oh, I have potions homework. And that guy is, like, always, like, whining about being the chosen one, and there's trolls in the dungeon. Anyway.
Absolute worst. So what else happens?
So yeah, because of the wind spirits, they like yeet themselves to Camp Half-Blood, but their wheels are broken, so they have to crash land into the lake. So they meet the other campers, and they seem kind of confused about the whole Piper, Jason, and Leo situation because they have not been claimed. And as we've mentioned, that's the new deal. If you're 13, it's kind of the whole prerogative of the gods to claim you. Because of the deal that Percy made at the end of the last series, he said, you gotta claim these unclaimed campers, which, now that I'm saying it, it's kind of messed up they didn't do that from the beginning, but for whatever reason, these campers have not been claimed, despite the fact that, how old is Piper now? She's over 13, she's like 15 or something like that.
They're all 16. They're all pretty much 16.
Maybe it was 15, because I think it was like 2 years after 13, which is the normal... Anyway, thereabouts. It's been at least a couple years past the cutoff when it's normally, a seeker helps them get to camp, which is interesting that they were at a camp, they were at a school taught by a seeker, but he didn't bring
called the Wilderness
them
Camp.
Back. So that's kind of... Oh, we meet Drew briefly, who I guess, I don't know, she sort of has, Clarice energy. She's like the mean camper you meet in the beginning.
Oh no, she's the mean girl, like in Mean Girls.
Yeah, but she's like, instead of being like a warrior nut job, she's like a catty mean girl, but same idea. She looks at Jason with, starry eyes and looks at Leo like maybe, and then looks at Piper like I
love how the description they give to her, it's like, the way that she looked at Piper was as if like she was like a 10-week-old bean burrito that she just found in the trash.
Yeah. So she's a mean girl. Leo gets claimed pretty early on, basically as soon as they get to camp, and they mention the concept of getting claimed a couple times, and before they even get a chance to explain it, Piper goes, wait, what's being claimed? And then as soon as that leaves her mouth, a fiery hammer appears over Leo's head, and surprise, surprise, son of Hephaestus, which is like he's probably the easiest to guess. So it's in some ways I'm frustrated that he's the one who gets claimed first, because I was hoping
It would be Piper.
maybe Piper or Jason would get claimed, because I don't really know who their demigod or who their godly parents are. So yeah, Annabeth explains claiming a little bit. And then Leo just, goes off to cabin 9 for children of Hephaestus, and they kind of explain it on the way. I like his little freak out where it's like, I'm not a Vulcan. For some reason, Jason knows.
Because Jason calls him a Vulcan, which is the Roman equivalent.
Yeah, the Roman name, which is interesting because this sort of reveals that Jason has some sort of memory wipe situation where like he knows more than he thinks he knows, or he has a memory that's been erased. It's not like he hasn't experienced this before, so we'll find out.
It's more like based off of like he does it like subconsciously rather than consciously. Like he'll say something,
right, and then it like slips out, and he's like, "I think I remember that." Speaking of which, mysterious man that Jason is, we find a tattoo on his arm, which is apparently burned into his skin. Some Latin inscription.
Can I read it?
He doesn't. Yeah, you can read it.
Yeah. So Jason had taken off his windbreaker after his dip in the lake, leaving his arm bare, and on the inside of his right forearm was a tattoo. How had Piper never noticed it before? She looked at Jason's arm millions of times. The tattoo couldn't have just appeared, but it was a dark etched, impossible to miss. A dozen straight lines like a barcode, and over that an eagle with the letters SPQR. I've never seen this mark like this, Annabeth said. Where did you get them? Jason shook his head. I'm getting really tired of saying this, but I don't know. The other campers pushed forward trying to get a look at Jason's tattoo. The marks seemed to bother them a lot, almost like a declaration of war. They look like they're burned into your skin, Annabeth noticed. They were, Jason said. Then he winced as if his head was aching. I think so. I don't remember.
Yeah, so that's interesting. That's, I think, going to become a more common Jason-ism, where he sort of lets slip this information in this confused way where he knows it, right? He knew the name of the storm spirits. He has like some of this information, but he doesn't know why or where he learned it.
Like his memory's all reversed. Like he's remembering everything from the Roman versions of them, but not the Greek versions of them.
Yeah, that's another detail that's interesting. I'm fascinated to know because he does have Latin.
Yeah, he's got SPQR, square.
Right, so it's not Greek, it's Latin. I feel like that's important because he's
etubite.
So if he has Latin inscribed in the tattoo, and also he's remembering all the Roman versions of the gods, then there's something to do with ancient Rome that we'll find out, I guess. And then on that note, Annabeth takes Jason to Chiron in this case, because she's like, we're gonna sort this out. There's something going on with you and your mysterious tattoo. And then, of course, we'll talk about later how Piper feels about that tattoo, because she has never seen it before in her life.
So what I like about kind of like the first, like chapter 3 about this is kind of like that introduction that we get of the whole camp. Like we're seeing it through the eyes of a person that has never been there before. Like to us, it's like old hat, but it's Rick Riordan trying to bring back that whimsy almost, but not really, because it isn't like everything's like, woo, wow, everything's awesome. Like we have our volcano training pit. Everything's awesome.
Right. It's not the best context, right? Because it's like very half-hearted, which we'll get into for chapter 4, because it's like they're not into it because their lives are being kind of torn apart and they're not like really hyped to be at Camp Half-Blood. And then even Annabeth is like looking for Percy, so her heart's not in it either. She's just sort of like half-heartedly like, all right, you go to Chiron, children of Hephaestus, take him to the cabin. You, Piper, let's figure out where to put you.
Yeah, there's a lot of that element into this, which for me I like, because already like it begins, everyone's at their lowest, like they're literally wetter than wet. And they're just like, I hate everything. And even like Piper's just like, man, this is all weird. But again, isn't whimsical.
Right,
like
and then a mean girl appears to insult them.
Well, yeah, that seems like something that's like kind of like every character needs a protagonist and an antagonist. Like, oh man, you're my best friend, but also I hate you.
There's really echoes of Lightning Thief there again, because it's like I become Supreme Lord of the Bathroom. It's like, oh, there's water everywhere, and there's a mean girl. Like, it's the same.
You know, exactly. And what I like about that as well is, again, like, it's not whimsical anymore, but I love how there's still, like, whimsical elements in it, like the celestial bronze, like, leaf blowers that they have to, like, dry them off.
Right, there's still, like, fun little moments, even though, obviously, we're kind of acclimated to it. It's also interesting that, like, I think you gain some of that novelty back because the camp's a little different. You know what I mean? Things are run a little differently. For instance, we'll find out Mr. D isn't there. You haven't met Chiron yet, but like Annabeth is sort of like this higher. I mean, is she a counselor? She kind of has a position of authority.
She's a head counselor, but she's always been like that. She's always been like, for the Athena cabin, like kind of like their head counselor. Like, this isn't new to her.
She seems even more assertive in these chapters for whatever it, like, because she's grown or something. And again, like, we're from the perspective of someone who's new, but it's a different feel.
We're also looking at it through the lens of someone that has never met Annabeth before, so the way that she's describing Annabeth is like she's really has everything together, but secretly we know that like she's held together with like rubber band and like rubber cement at times.
Annabeth's a little bit of a different character. The camp feels slightly different. You know, they're sort of like rebuilding after the end of the last series. Things run a little differently, like I said, with, you know, there's more campers. Apparently it's busy all year round now because they've invited more campers and more demigods are being claimed on a regular basis.
And another thing that we kind of not skipped over, but when it comes to it, this series is taking place like literally the next summer. Like they had gotten together in August, and now it's near like winter solstice by the end of this
right, because
section.
when they arrive, you see the snow around Camp Half-Blood, so you see that like they're all weather controlled, but that everywhere else it's winter.
Yeah, and they're kind of like on winter break, much like the Titan's Curse. Like you see again foreshadowings of things to come, as well as like. It's unique because when we get to the claiming process, what I like about it is like, wow, we're already getting into this. Like, there isn't like that super like whimsical nature of like Percy Jackson got claimed and everyone like kneels down. This is all like old hat almost at this point.
Right. That yeah, they are also very blasé about
like, oh great, another one got claimed. Yippee whippy.
When he's claimed. Yeah, I mean, like they do go, oh look, Leo's being claimed, but I do think that there was a little bit more of a to-do. When Percy got claimed. Then again, he also was of the big three, which is kind of a big deal. But now they're getting campers all the time.
As they break down, like, later on, it's like, well, some cabins have people that are claimed, some people don't. Like, Hera doesn't, Artemis doesn't. Like, they talk about that, and I love how, again, it's just like, okay, well, he has these hammers. He gets to go to Hephaestus' cabin, and everyone's like, oh no, what about the curse? Like, what curse? What? Huh?
Oh, right, the curse.
There's a curse, apparently.
Yeah, that's a brief mention. I forgot about that, actually.
That's why you have me, because I can remember weird random things.
Yeah, there's like, that's the thing, is like, Rick Riordan does this thing where he'll like very briefly have a character like allude to something. You'll be like, wait, huh, what? And then like just steamroll right onto the next thing, and you're like, you forget there's a lot of information to keep track of.
Yeah, there's a lot of information, but the way I see it here, like I'm not bogged down by it, because again, I'm looking at this from a person that has read this series before, but at the same time, someone that's looking at it for the first time again. And there isn't like information that like bogs you down. There isn't like an exposition dump. The only time it kind of gets like that is when they're walking around camp and Annabeth is explaining the gods a little bit.
Right. You get a little caught up to speed. So that's really in chapter 4, where she gives Piper like the tour of everything. I guess, yeah, chapter 3 too. There is a lot of exposition just because it's like this is the intro chapters. They're teaching them about what Camp Half-Blood is, especially as someone who just read the last series. It can feel a little perfunctory, like, yeah, I know all this stuff, but it's not boring because it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like a new spin on it, I guess.
Well, see, the way that I'm looking at this is because like there was a huge sale of Assassin's Creed games and I just finished Black Flag. Is that it's like, oh wow, this is awesome, but then you play the next game, it's like it's still the exact same kind of game, but you have to go through the tutorial. They're going to explain all the new things.
Right.
It's like I already know this stuff, but okay, we gotta explain everything.
But it's cool to see the tutorial with some things change and also with new characters. I like Piper a lot. She's a very kind of interesting character. She's not completely dissimilar from Annabeth, just in that she has sort of like this weird storied past. In some ways, she reminds me of Rachel because there's some mystery about who her dad is, which we'll get to in chapter 4.
And she always alludes to her dad being some weird, mysterious, powerful person.
Yeah, what is with mysterious, powerful dads in Percy Jackson? That it's just what
it almost
he
seems
does,
like a
I
plot
guess.
element. Well,
I mean, your parents are going to be mysterious if you're a demigod, I guess. So
well,
that...
I think also when it comes to it, I think when it comes to like kids' books as well, like you want your parents to be like these super awesome beings that are like either rich or famous or like super agents or secret agents or whatever you want them to be.
Meanwhile, the best mom in Percy Jackson was Sally, and she was just a human.
Well, no, she also had special characteristics. Like she could see through the mist.
Oh, that's true. She could see through the mist. You're right.
Like there's things
That's
like
true.
that. Yeah, like see like, when it comes to like parental figures, like again, this is gonna sound weird, but I actually been rereading all of Artemis Fowl, and there's a lot of that. It's like, well, super spy villainy stuff, but my parents, like, one of them was normal, one of them was like a super like arch villain. Like there's things like that happen a lot in like YA middle grade where you need to have a parent be like super duper awesome or they both have to be dead or inept. Whereas like if you look at the Baudelaire parents, they were secret agents. Like again, they had like a mysterious past.
Yeah, the mysterious past of the parents. That's true. Yeah, I think, well, because that also kind of like grounds you in an interesting lore. In these books, obviously, there's the whole like godly parent thing where it's like, oh, my parent all along has been a god. That's really cool. I'm steeped in all this like complicated lore that I didn't even know about. But what's interesting is like her mortal dad is also something's up with him, but we don't really know what it is yet.
Now, here's something I just noticed about this. I'm not sure if this is like the personification of the Greek gods but in your mind, do you see them as like actually like Grecian people, or do you see them as just like they are who they are?
Now that I think about it, I think in my heart of hearts, my vision of Mount Olympus is the same as Mount Olympus is in the Hercules Disney movie, but that's just because it was like a formative experience on my brain. So like in my mind's eye, I'm like picturing that, I think. Yeah. Or like a combination of that and like the illustrations from the books and like the musical adaptation. Like my brain kind of sees an amalgamation or either or depending on like a scene that reminds me. I think so. It's weird asking what people like envision when they read. Some people don't like have like visions of stuff when they read. Like they don't like picture a layout, and some people do. It's kind of interesting. Like everyone's reading style is different.
Because it's interesting, especially when it comes to like the Greek gods, like in that way. Like you see them as like these like other beings, and they're also like really cool parents. I'm not saying that parenting wise, no, but like they're really cool.
Yeah, parenting wise, they're really cool. End of sentence.
Yeah,
parents.
Yeah, ... parents. But that's the same thing. It's like you see them as like, oh, they're a bunch of like the big happy Greek family, or do you see them as like it's an interesting like juxtaposition that you have in that way. Is like what I love. I said that about like the races is because like that's something that again we're exploring now here as well as like everyone's half something, but yet they all care about each other. That's
true too. That is like I'm sure an intentional thing on Rick Riordan's part, right? That now in some ways Piper will get to see this community where she feels accepted. Like, there's always that metaphor, right, of that the demigods represent kind of any group of misfits, and we kind of get into it in chapter 4 more, where Annabeth explains what it's like to be a demigod, and like she's very non-judgmental towards Piper in a way that surprises her.
That's like something that I've always thought about here as well. As like they're always going to be half something, and I love that there isn't like any blatant racism at Camp Half-Blood. Like everyone's just equal in that
other
way.
Than towards Cyclopses.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, that's different because Cyclopses aren't half-bloods, I guess. But that's also
even though that they're the children of God. Listen, there's a lot to unpack.
There is a lot to unpack, and you know what? They all became less poopy to Tyson, so we got to give them.
That's true. People can grow and people can change. Yeah, I'm interested to see how Piper's identity as an indigenous person is like
portrayed.
Represented.
B, here's the most important thing I think that's interesting about Piper is that she, obviously she is the parent of a Greek god. Now, if we look at, I'm not really versed in like Native American and indigenous religions, but does that mean like a lot of their creation myths and stuff, does that mean do their gods exist in that way? Like, is there something interesting?
Right, and then why isn't she involved in that? That's kind of interesting too, right? Well, I guess like kind of what you were saying about how I envision the gods, you mean like because you said, and I've gleaned that the Rick Riordan universe is like complicated, where there are other mythologies that coexist, which I think is sort of hinted at already in the fact that Jason has some ancient Roman stuff going on with him. So it's like, are they the same gods he's talking about, or like what's the situation with that?
Is his brain just fried where he's just thinking of them in reverse?
Yeah, that would be really interesting if like sort of different like native spiritualities coexisted with the Greek mythology.
So what I'll say about this B is that we have Rick Riordan Presents. We have a lot of different mythologies working into play, and we already know that in Percy Jackson that the one thing that, again, we've talked about before, it's like how Rick Riordan got past the hurdle of like, there isn't just one a god, there's just like gods.
Right, yes, exactly, because that would be super invalidating to a lot of different religions if you're like, all of you are wrong, but the Greek gods are real. Like, that would cause a real crisis in religious people reading this.
It's interesting to look, we're so used to like Percy, who's pretty much like this like tan white kid almost at times. And then we get to like someone like Piper, who's a little more complicated. Like, she's very proud to be like Native American. Like, it gets under her skin when people say like racist stuff to her. So it's an interesting juxtaposition we're getting here, where it isn't just a bunch of
right.
Like,
you have to think about how she exists as a racialized person and also as a demigod, which is kind of complicated.
Because we've seen that before with like when we talk about race and like Percy Jackson, like we've had Charlie Beckendorf, who's pretty much just stock character. You have Tyson, who they still perceive him as a person with like tan skin, stock character.
Right, and again, that was more of a metaphor.
Yeah, it's more of a metaphor. Like, I'm not saying that like,
or possibly ability. That was complicated. It was a difficult to parse metaphor happening with Tyson.
Before I'm about to get an email, what I just said about like Charles Beckendorf like being a stock character is like you don't get into his headspace, so you don't know like his thoughts and feelings.
You don't go like, oh, what's it like to be an African American and also
a demigod?
A demigod. Like, they don't know enough about him to.
The way they perceive him is like everyone loves Charlie Beckendorf.
Well, it's also through Percy, so it's not like he's gonna. Let's be honest, Percy is kind of like a box of rocks sometimes, and it's not like he's thinking that deeply about what's going on with Beckendorf, especially at like 16 or whatever.
No, and that's what I love, that we're getting all these POV characters. Like we have Piper, we have Leo, we have Jason, and we're going to get into their heads. I guarantee you each one's going to have their own type of conflict. May it be race, may it be ideology, may it be possibly sexuality-wise. Like, there's other things that we're going to be exploring through this series, because that's why I love POV characters. Like, my favorite example of this going into it is they get to, like, the Hunter of Artemis cabin, and they start explaining, like, oh, what's the Hunter of Artemis? So, like, they get to, like, the Hunter of Artemis, and she starts to explain it, and Annabeth is trying to explain, like, the positivities. Like, oh, yeah, you don't die. Like, oh, and Piper's like, oh, that's great, except, unless you die in combat or break their vows. Did I mention they have to swear off boys? No dating ever for eternity? And then Piper's like, oh, Piper said, never mind. Like, that's why I would have loved the POV character of Bianca and getting into her headspace. Because then you would have, like, understood that.
Right, because Annabeth was so like, oh, I don't have time for this. Well, yeah, it's nice that you get Piper, who simultaneously, she does care about a boy. She's, like, romantic. She's sad about what's happening with Jason. But she's also, like, not kind of this, I don't know, joke character where they're making fun of her for being, like, boy crazy or something. I think that sometimes happens a lot with, like, Aphrodite cabin, like, campers. They often, like, become a little flanderized in the way that they're like, like they're always, like, falling in love or whatever. So I like the balance of Piper, that she's like, yeah, she's like a teen girl who has, like, a crush on this guy, and now she's sad about it, and she doesn't want to not date him anymore. Even, like, that's sort of, I like Annabeth's reaction too, because she kind of like chuckles at that, because that's probably what she would think if someone said it to her in reference to like Percy like a couple years ago, but she wouldn't have said out loud, oh, never mind, because she's like too proud, I guess, to admit. Yeah,
there's a lot of that, and that's one of the reasons why I find it's interesting about Piper. Like, she isn't like the person, like, she's gonna grab onto Luke's big old bicep and be like, if I just love you enough, your memory will come back or something. Like, she's just like, well, this has happened, let's Let's figure this out together, everybody.
Well, right, like she's both not like this like cartoonish, like, oh my god, I'm boy crazy, I'm in love with everyone or whatever, which is, to be honest, is kind of like the
I just roll
what's her
my
name
eyes.
character. Yeah, what was her name again?
Selena?
That horrible girl.
Oh, Nancy Bobbitt?
No, in the new book, the horrible girl, it's like not a girl's name. It's
Clarice?
no, I'm in the. Oh my god. Seriously, hold on a sec. Drew, yes. Drew is kind of like that, where she's just like the Aphrodite cabin character that we've come to expect. Though then again, that is a really good opportunity for Annabeth to be like, oh, they're not all like that, you know?
No, it's
All
like
those Aphrodite cabiners, which I kind of appreciated because again, that sort of like allows for the spectrum of different girl characters to exist. Like it's not just sort of like making fun of the emotions of girls in that way.
yeah, and also like if you look at it, like we have like almost like a stereotype of what we think of like Aphrodite, like oh they're all boy crazy and stuff. It'd be interesting to have a character that's like I really don't like boys all that much. It's just my mom fell in love with my dad because chocolate or something.
Right.
Like
God, that would be really fascinating. Like, well, because she's just like the goddess of love too. So then, like, there's a whole other question about if there was like a queer person in the Aphrodite cabin or something,
or
like,
an asexual person or someone that's
right.
like,
Yeah, that I bet that fanfic exists for sure. If it doesn't, I mean, that would
God,
be a really
that'd actually be like
interesting
a really
story.
interesting like actually kind of a story like a person that's like asexual that doesn't want to be in a relationship.
But anyway, Piper's kind of an interesting character. 'Cause she's like a teen, but she's still like she's not like real like blushy or embarrassed about the fact that she likes Jason. She's really like just she's like way ahead of Annabeth in a lot of ways. Where like
It's like a
I don't
breath
know, there's
of
just like a
fresh
lot of
air,
like
B.
weird emotional immaturity. I know, right? Because like I was so sick of all of that, like that real will they, won't they, like won't admit they like each other stupid thing. While like Piper's just like, yeah, I like Jason. I wouldn't become a Hunter of Artemis because I like him. Like that's, I kind of liked that honesty.
So B, why don't you kind of summarize chapter 4 because that's the real meat and potatoes of this.
Right, yeah, so this is like a big old chapter, so bear with me. I'll try my best to summarize pretty quickly. So, Annabeth shows Piper the camp. They walk around and like they're kind of both not really into it. Piper's like really distracted about the whole Jason thing. Annabeth is pretty distracted about the whole Percy thing. You know, boyfriends. They're just kind of they're not really in it, but they're kind of going through the motions, showing all the different parts of camp, which, I mean, for the most part, we're familiar with. Again, with, you know, a few addendums here and there, what with the changes that happened at the end of the last series. So yeah, Annabeth talks a little bit more about getting claimed and how it's, like, really not... Oh, Annabeth is, like, kind of confused about why Piper is so chill about everything, and that goes back to the weird dream that Piper had that we don't know what that was or who was it. There's a few hints. There's a voice, and she was told to betray them to save everything. There's a few references to it throughout this chapter, but that's the gist of it basically, is that she has to betray them and that she was warned of this like a few days before all of this happened, so she kind of isn't as shocked about the whole thing.
So the kind of the weird dream that she has pretty much says, "Soon they will find you, demigod," the voice had rumbled. "When they do, follow our instructions, cooperate, and your father might live."
Right, they threaten her dad, so that's a big one. And again, that becomes more complicated when we don't know who her dad is. There's some like hinting. It's complicated. She doesn't divulge exactly who her dad is. There's something. She's like, he's a Cherokee artist, and that's like a misleading phrase. Apparently, she even like admits it sort of in her internal monologue, and even Annabeth is like, okay, sure. And then apparently, like, she finds the last name familiar, McLean, and then something to do with like that and ancient Greece, like, but she doesn't connect the dots. Apparently, I'm not connecting the dots. Is there a famous historian? Like, what's happening here? Is he a Greek artist? Like, it doesn't quite make sense because, again, she said he was Cherokee, but then Annabeth is like, wait a second, why is he making Greek art?
Well, here's the thing as well. Remember, she calls up his assistant, and it's like, we don't want to cause any panic and have a media circus.
He's also missing. Yeah, that's another thing. So he is in immediate danger.
Oh my God, B, I figured it out. B. He is Carmen Sandiego.
Well, that makes sense, clearly.
Where in the world is he?
I feel, did we not say that about Rachel or somebody else before?
I'm sure we've done that.
Echoing as familiar.
Well, that's like Rick Riordan loves this dumb trope of like having super, like we've already talked about it, but it's like they kind of keep alluding to it and
having a really mysterious character. It's like, just what we're your internal monologue. You can tell us.
You can tell us. Yeah, exactly. Like that's we're not there yet. We're not there yet. But what else happens, B?
So yeah, this is when Annabeth again mentions the whole thing about getting claimed, and she's confused that Piper hasn't been claimed in a couple years because she's supposed to be claimed at 13. And that there's some hints as to like what the deal was. She's like, that was the deal. She's like, what deal? She's like, they made a promise. It's complicated. It's funny because like to someone who's new to these books entirely, like if you're going into this series cold, you'd be like, what does that mean? Obviously we know an entire war happened to cause that to happen.
It was kind of a big deal, but it was also a small deal at the same time. You know, no biggie. You know, Percy Jackson gave up the idea of becoming a god to help humankind.
Right. He sacrificed a lot, but then it like doesn't. I don't know. It does change a lot of things, but it's like, oh, it's normal now. This is what happens.
I love that it's a time skip. It's not like War Reconstruction where it takes a slow time.
Right. That would be a bit much. I'm glad it was both a time skip enough to like get us into the, I guess, normalcy of like this new routine, but not so far ahead that like we're not getting some of the same characters or enough of like the immediate aftermath of like who they are as people. It's kind of a nice balance.
Like a good example of this B is like, I like where the blend is right now because like it works. Like, a good example of this is going from, like, Avatar: The Last Airbender to The Legend of Korra, which takes place very far into the future. All your favorite characters are now, like, really old or dead. And it's like, I'd rather hang out with my old friends rather than these new people, because they're cool.
She doesn't get into it, like you said. There's, like, hints of the stuff that has happened before, but they don't, like, really delve into, like, there was this guy Kronos. It's like, we don't have time to tell you what happens in The Lightning Thief or what happens in Percy Jackson and the Olympians. You just go read it if you want to know all of this stuff.
I would have loved that. Like, hey, yo, Percy Jackson wrote this whole 5-book series about it.
He wrote this whole long, weird book. The tense is very complicated, but regardless, he does talk about how pretty I am, says Annabeth.
I'm just imagining that's what happens. Like, you cut to like Piper like reading Percy Jackson's book like in like real meta experience.
Wow, so meta. That's really confusing. Anyway, we get a brief mention of Coach Hedge, which is kind of interesting. We talk about how he's a seeker, therefore a satyr, part goat. And yeah, it's kind of funny because then Piper's like, oh, I could kind of picture
as
him
an angry Daisy,
as part goat. Yeah. Oh, and then we talk about how he's probably dead, which is weirdly dark. Very early on in the book. Probably died because the Storm of Spirits are very hard to kill. Because Celestial Bronze works on them, but only if you could hit them. And I guess Jason got lucky. But Coach Hedge probably didn't, so he died. And then Annabeth says some like real creepy stuff about how he like knew the risks of being a seeker, and he's probably gonna be a flower. And then Piper doesn't seem too jazzed about that. She's kind of like, oh, that's worse. I'm picturing a very angry flower.
I'm just imagining like one like has like a real like frowny face, and like has like a little leaf arms are like crossed.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's great.
Sort of like the angry flowers in what is it, Alice in Wonderland?
Yeah, exactly. Like the old, like, witchy flowers.
Yeah, with, like, the scary face. Those kind of freaked me out as a kid. I don't know why.
No, the one that scared me the most was actually from Tim Burton's one, because they're, like, really realistic, and they also look really gross.
Well, everything's kind of Uncanny Valley in his movies.
Okay, well, that's just Tim Burton being like, I like being weird for the sake of weird.
He sure does. So that leads us into a little bit of, like, Piper and Annabeth talking about the culture of demigods and Camp Half-Blood and what it's like to be a demigod, because, you know, Piper, she's a little bit like, oh, you don't understand me, like, I'm a kleptomaniac and I've been to all these different schools, and Annabeth completely sincerely is like, you've only been kicked out of 5 schools, and suddenly it sort of dawns on Piper that all of the demigods are like this. They all have ADHD, they have dyslexia, they don't play well with others, so to speak, they're outcasts, all that kind of stuff. And it is kind of like a funny moment where she's all ready to be like, you couldn't possibly understand, and then Annabeth is like, oh, I like really do understand. And I liked that.
Like, no, Piper, we really do understand. Then she kind of gets upset because she mentioned Percy. Like, he was kicked out of these men. Oh, yeah. Let's keep
Like,
moving.
yeah, she says she ran away at 7, and then Piper's like, oh, I'm a jerk.
Oh, I'm a jerk. And it's like, wait a second. It's like the slide whistle moment where it's like, wait, you get kind of like caught up in this conversation. You forget all about Annabeth for a second. Then you realize, some people have it worse than others. But at the same time, they all have like this common ground, which I like about what Rick Riordan does here at Camp Half-Blood, where it's like the island of like misfit toys, but everyone like works together.
Right. So this conversation, they talk a little bit about how they're outcasts, and then finally Piper is honest about why, well, maybe not why, but part of why she's so ostracized is she's like, I guess a thief, a kleptomaniac is what she calls herself at one point. She steals things, quote unquote, but the way she phrases it, she's like, oh, I do it to get attention, but I don't really steal things. I convince people, but no one ever like believes that I convince them. So I guess the gist is that she has the ability to persuade people into giving her things, but then once they like snap out of it, they're like, I just gave that child a car, which is a very hilarious image to imagine. But also,
not only that, she gets a BMW. That's the reason why she's in the wilderness school. Like, that's some silver-tongued devil stuff right there, isn't it?
Right. So her abilities, you would think, would have to do with her demigod parent, and Annabeth is kind of baffled by this, like, oh, well, if it was your dad, I would guess Hermes, because he's, like, silver-tongued and persuasive, and he's the god of thieves, but it's not her dad who's the god, it's her mom. So then part of me is like, is this like a red herring in a way? Like, maybe that ability isn't related to her godly parent at all, and it actually is her dad or something, or like, even weirder, like, what if he's also magical in a different way?
I mean, if we look at all the female goddesses out there, I think the one they spent the most time with was Hera for some weird reason.
Well, because she has an axe to grind.
Oh no, Annabeth is like, I hate her so much.
So we'll talk about Hera.
Why is she a poopy butt face?
Yeah, basically. So Piper explains that they get to a cave. But we get introduced to the idea of Rachel, which, I mean, to us, we're like, Rachel!
I love Rachel!
You know who you are!
Yay!
To other people, they're like, who's Rachel? Why does she live in a cave? I
mean, some people have to, like, live with, like, their sibling in a room. Rachel has to live in a cave. Even though she goes to school and has a nice
they mention that later, that she goes to prep school in Connecticut, and her dad has, like, a nice place in Long Island and whatever. Like, so it's not actually... like, she's living in a cave full time. Why would you... I'm still kind of confused about the cave choice. Like, I feel like the attic would have been better than a cave. I don't know. Maybe she likes it.
Maybe she likes all the room. It's, maybe it's her girl cave.
Yeah. She shed.
Yeah, her she shed. Oh, no. Oh, no, the Oracle sea shed.
This is my Oracle she shed.
Because, okay, so it's sea shed for girls and man caves for dudes, right? I can't remember.
I think so, yeah. And then, I don't know... non-binary hovels. Like, what do we get?
I don't... B, why don't you just... What is that word? Because you got to coin it right now. Let's go.
Okay, cottage. I want a cottage.
Oh.
But it's not like a very fun, snappy name.
You got man cave, she shed.
I don't know. There's not really a format.
I don't know. I like cottage. It's just your personal knitting cottage.
Yeah, this is my non-binary cottage.
Your nonage? I don't know.
No, see, workshop. You guys, give us your suggestions.
I can only come up with puns, but yeah. So they go to that cave. And...
she's not there, so that's kind of a false start. But we get introduced to the idea of her again. If you're not familiar with her, we already know that she's the Oracle and everything, as per what happened before in the last series. So Annabeth's still kind of caught up about the whole Percy missing thing. So he's been missing for 3 days, and what would you know? That's exactly when Piper had her dream, the dream that she won't quite explain is about, and won't tell anybody about. It's a secret, which, geez, if one thing drives me up a wall.
It's that.
With characters, is when they have some vision and they don't tell, like, what could you possibly lose?
B, it's like almost like it's deja vu for some weird reason, as if we're gonna have interrupt this again.
Right. I mean, at least, at the very least in this scenario, they said that if she doesn't betray them, then she won't get her father back or whatever. So she has like this impetus to lie.
Yeah, well, there's actually like a
But
reason.
I don't know. I feel like I would still tell the truth, but then again, I'm just like really bad at lying in that way. I wouldn't be able to lie like Piper, so that's why I'm very confused by that kind of behavior.
My whole career on this podcast is a lie to you, so I think it might be easy.
Yeah, you gotta conceal everything.
Conceal
the
field. Now let it go.
Oh god, no.
Oh my god.
I'm cutting that off right now.
Ah, man, B, all I want to do is build a snowman. That's all I want to do. Okay, bye.
Here comes another big, horrible moment for Piper, and that's the fact that probably Jason isn't her boyfriend, or more specifically, all of her memories of him are made from the mist. So, in fact, our confusion of Jason being like, oh, he has amnesia, he actually was this student at whatever school, that's not true. They were all tricked into thinking that, but it's all made up.
It's like in The Lightning Thief with like Mrs. Dodds when she dies, they have like Mrs. Kerr or someone along those lines.
Right, it's like, oh, well, we never had that teacher
Yeah,
before.
but now it's like we've always had this student before, and it makes Jason much more of an interesting character, but also now there's this interesting dilemma now where it's like fake memories based off of real memories. Like, is the feelings that she has for Jason, are they real or are they manipulated through magic? Which is an interesting conundrum because we're not used to that.
Right, because then I'm trying to think, like, okay, how recently did Jason appear, and how, like, where's the cutoff of the fake memories? When did they start dating? Like, it's kind of, the timeline's complicated.
They may not have dated at all, for all we know.
Right, exactly. They may have never actually come to that conclusion. They didn't have all these memories. But Piper has very vivid memories of Jason, which Annabeth finds a little odd. Just very specific memories of them doing different things. So, like, are these actually fake? I don't know. But again, her entire world's being turned upside down. Like, literally, she's been sent to this camp, found out she was a demigod, hasn't been claimed, and now she's finding out not only does her boyfriend not remember who she is, but rather she's the one who's mistaken. They were never dating at all.
So pretty much, it's one panic attack at a time. You gotta sparse those out a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's kind of no wonder Piper passes out at the end of this chapter. Who would not?
It's a real like drama thing, or it's like, oh no, I got a zit. Oh no, my boyfriend might not be my actual boyfriend because his implanted memories. Oh no, I gotta arm myself to the teeth.
So what gets Piper to kind of admit that she doesn't actually know Jason, which is a complicated, weird thing to have to come to terms with when you think it's your boyfriend, but there's a few details. One, she doesn't know his last name, she doesn't know his past, really, doesn't know a lot of little details about him. Two, she didn't know that tattoo at all. She didn't recognize it. A very deep black tattoo burned into his skin, which he vaguely has a recollection of, that was, I guess, burned into his skin. She doesn't remember seeing it, so I guess, has his arms been covered this whole time? How recently did he appear? A lot of questions.
Well, I mean, she like looks at his arms all the time, so it's not like she wouldn't be able to see it. It's like, whoops, it was underneath your armpit the entire time.
There are so many questions, Zach. There are so many questions.
And I can't wait for all the answers. There's so many answers. There's so many answers, B. And the interesting thing I love about that, as well as like, I love that Annabeth is in the way that she is, like she knows like how the mist works in this way, because we've seen her before already know how to manipulate the mist, because they've talked about that in the last series. And she's like, what's his last name? Jason McNameson?
Jason Alexander.
Jason Alexander. Oh no. Hey everybody.
I'm her boyfriend, Jerry. I'm her boyfriend.
Well, keep her away from wedding invitations. Gosh.
Oh my god.
Oh no, she got a paper cut. Well, she did.
I'd love to know which people got that reference.
There's Jason Alexander from my favorite movie, Dunstan Checks In.
Jeez. Okay. So, this is when she gets her weapon, which is what you chose to name our chapter after. In this case, it's kind of interesting. Do you know what this reminds me of, actually?
What?
It's very reminiscent of when, is it Bilbo? When Bilbo gets his sword, and it's really like more like a letter opener, it's like a little dagger.
Yeah, no, when he gets Sting from when they get rid of all the trolls and they find their hoard of stuff.
Right, yeah, and it's very similar. It's like in this pile of stuff, and it's kind of not really being used for its purpose. In this case, Piper picks out a knife, which apparently belonged to Helen of Troy. It's kind of it's got some bad juju on it, at least. And it's also not really a real weapon.
It's a ceremonial dagger.
Yeah, exactly. It's like decorative. Its name means like looking glass or mirror, so that's probably what Helen of Troy used it for.
Yeah,
she just looked into it and was like, I'm beautiful, but it has like magical properties, it seems, because when Piper looks into it, she sees herself, but like more self-assured. She has these like sort of horrible visions at one point when looking into it, so it has some sort of, I guess, prognosticating abilities or something.
So B, what you're telling me, this is the knife of Erised?
Sort of, honestly, or I don't know, because there's negative things too, but it has some sort of predictive something happening there.
So it gives you +1 to charisma? And also has side effects. Got it.
Yeah, or just like maybe a vision into a possible future or something. Or something like that. Maybe it's just, I don't know.
No, B, you're missing the most important thing about this whole interaction. That kind of...
Oh, the shotgun?
Yeah, okay. I get to talk about this. I'm excited.
Oh my god, that was very funny. I really appreciate that. That was like an extreme, like badass Annabeth moment, which I really appreciated.
Okay, so I want to talk about this. So... Annabeth rummaged a little further into the shed and brought out something else. A shotgun? Piper asked. Mossberg 500. Annabeth checked the pump action like it was no big deal. Don't worry, it doesn't hurt humans. It's modified to shoot celestial bronze, so it only kills monsters. What I love about this is we've talked about this so many times. Why don't they use
concept of a gun?
Yeah, a gun.
I mean, there's guns sometimes. Like there was guns with like the planes, remember? And like there was like those soldiers and...
Yeah, but the difference though is like, why don't they modify guns to shoot celestial bronze? Wouldn't that be more effective? But I find it funnier.
Right, and then Annabeth's dad had that at one point, right? Because they did like the dogfight.
Well, that's where we got... You know what? That's probably where they got the idea from. That's honestly probably... They got the idea because of him. And...
It's a smart idea.
It is a smart idea. And what I love about this as well is it shows that demigods are adapting in this way. But also, in my head, it is hilarious to think that Rick Riordan picked a specific gun that is... A Mossberg is used for hunting. It's like home defense gun 101. But also at the same time, you have to think about how ludicrous the idea is of like Annabeth holding this pump action shotgun that's probably bigger than her.
Yeah, it's a great image. I so clearly pictured her going.
Oh like, no, it's exactly like it. Like she has like a spent shell she uses. That's so great, and it's funny because we look at this. We look at how like things have changed, and it's like you could say, why didn't they use that as a plot hole? Why didn't they just shoot Luke in his big dumb face with their Mossberg 500?
Right. Bye bye. Well, no, you got to aim for his weak spot though.
Yeah. Oh, you guys got to aim a little lower, B. Just a little lower. Lower? Okay, you're good.
So Piper looks at the dagger. She's like, ooh, gets a little bit, like, faint there for a second. Annabeth's like, are you okay? You don't look so great. Are you sure you want this knife that seems to be making you sick? And she's like, yes, I want this knife that's making me sick.
I think it's funny that they use Helena Troy's blade because Helena Troy got a whole lot of people killed. And it was like, you know, obviously the greatest love story ever told. I guess there's no illusion there about, like, Helen and Troy in Paris, I believe. I don't remember. I've seen Troy with Brad Pitt like once in my life, and that's the only thing I can think about it. But it's also like, you know, it's a love story. It doesn't allude to me that it's supposed to be Jason and Piper.
Right, yeah.
In the middle of her having this cursed blade, which...
That makes sense.
It's also bad that we have a sword, or at least this is a knife that is named. That means he had to put in the effort and also do the research of the name of the sword that Helen and Troy had.
Or I guess dagger, whatever it is. Because it's really funny because then Annabeth is like, ooh, you sure you want that? I mean, like, swords are better. And she's like, you have a knife. And then you're like, oh, I can't argue with that.
And then you look at the knife and be like, oh, wait a second, this knife killed my old simp boyfriend.
Oh, right, yes. Well, my knife also cursed. We have a preponderance of cursed knives here at Camp Half-Blood. All the knives cursed. Really, we can't even cut our steak without getting cursed.
Guys, we're practically giving away cursed knives. You come down here, we'll give you a free knife. I am so
crazy. Have you ever seen That video of the guy, he's like on the Home Shopping Network or something, and he's like demonstrating a sword for whatever reason, and he's like, this is unbreakable, and he's just like hitting it, and then a piece, like a whole hunk of it breaks off and stabs him.
And he's like calm about it too. I'm like, oh, this is
and
bad.
then he's like, oh, we've got a problem. Well, actually, no, the guy off screen is like, we've got a problem in the studio, and then he's like, that got me good, Odell. Whoever Odell is, that's kind of what I'm picturing. Those were Luke's final words. Got me good, Odell.
My other favorite one is like the special ladder that they have. Like this guy starts to get on it, and it like falls and collapses. Like, whoop, I forgot to lock it.
Right.
There's like dumb stuff like that, but it's pretty much like I'm thinking like the crazy car salesman is like, we're practically giving away cursed knives. You want a knife? I will practically give you my knife. I will stab myself with this knife to prove how cursed it is. You come down to Crazy Earl's cursed dagger shop.
You'll die. Your dad will die. Everyone you know will die. Anyway, so Piper gets a little woozy, but she's like, I'm cool. It's fine. Then she calls her dad, or in this case, she calls her dad's secretary, who's being cagey at best.
Like, she's the one that's like, so we shouldn't worry. He's just missing, and we shouldn't contact the police because that would be bad because it would cause, like, a media circus.
That would be such a controversy, which that's bad advice, but whatever
it's
you
making me think that
Janet, is that her name again? No, Jane. Sorry, it's Jane.
Janet. The way you said that was such venom.
I added a T. It's very close.
The way you said that had so much venom to it. Janet. Like, oh man.
When you say Jane, it's like Karen. It's like
oh yeah,
okay,
Karen
Jane.
with a hard K. Karen. When it comes down to this, like, Piper's dad is probably either like he's obviously either really rich or the super president or like just some very popular person. He's like
super
a podcaster
president.
or something. There's president and then there's super president.
Yeah, there's a lot of mysteries about her dad.
Or maybe he's Indiana Jones. Yeah, there's a lot of weird things.
Oh yeah, Hunters of Artemis, that's when this scene happens. Talk a little bit about the whole situation with how they swear off boys. It's just kind of like a fun moment where I love Piper's trajectory being like, that's real sick, they don't die. And Artemis always seemed cool, and they're like, oh, no boyfriends. And she's like, well,
never mind, JK.
I redact. Never mind.
And then you see like Bianca out and like as like a weird force ghost, and she just like shrugs.
Right. So this is kind of more of the tour of the different cabins. They go by Aphrodite's cabin. That's when we get the subtle reference to Selena. I really liked that moment where, I mean, it was kind of dark, but I liked the callback where she says, oh, well, not all of them are like that. The last head of that cabin was great or whatever, and I forget exactly how she phrases it. And then when Piper rightfully asks what happened to her, and then it's just like, oh, she had a grave look on her face, like, oh, not the best.
I mean, would have been more awkward. Like, yeah, so she betrayed us and got half her face melted off and then died because she betrayed us, but she's still a hero in our eyes. Like, what I like about this, what I really do enjoy about when it comes to this is I love subtlety goes a long way in a lot of things, especially like, I could use Star Wars, but I'm going to try to like inch away from that. Is like a good example of this is actually Star Trek, the Kelvin timeline, where it's supposed to be like it's a split timeline in the Star Trek movies with J.J. Abrams, where the second movie, everything's a reference to the TV show, and it's really annoying rather than just being subtle. Like, subtlety goes a long way.
No, yeah, it's very subtly done. Like, really, if you're in the know, you know, and it feels genuine and like how the characters would react. But there's no like weird retreading of plot where it's like, and then this thing. It's like there's a fair amount of references to the last series, but that makes sense. Like, we're still in the same setting. There's a lot of the same characters.
Well, it also makes sense because in canon, it makes sense that they wouldn't want to bring it up because they even talk about in the last book that they gave her a hero's death.
Right. Yeah, that'd be just like dark and weird too for her to be like, so here's this whole complicated story of why my friend died. Like, she probably wouldn't get into it.
No, she wouldn't, because it would just be really sad and depressing.
So during all of this tour of the different cabins, Piper's kind of like feeling out, oh, is this my cabin? Like, she hasn't been claimed yet, so she's like, am I the daughter? And again, she's guessing based on goddesses because, you know, her dad is her mortal parent.
So we have Athena, Aphrodite. We have Artemis.
Right, she asks about Artemis, and then she's bummed about the fact that Artemis can't have children, so that's not...
And we also have Hera, which they go into a lot of detail with.
Right.
And
not great.
And then we have Hestia, it's another one we could also use.
Yeah, so Hera's interesting because Zeus has his own cabin, and Zeus and Hera are together, and she doesn't have any kids without Zeus. So there's definitely no children of Hera who are not also children of Zeus.
Yeah, and also when it comes to Hera, she's the goddess of marriage.
Right, exactly. That's why she's only with Zeus. And then he doesn't have any kids other than Talia, who went off to be a hunter of Artemis.
The best one though is they actually describe what the Hades temple looks like, or the Hades cabin is, and it's like this black obsidian place with green fire torches, and I love it.
Yeah, just super emo, you know, like a Hot Topic.
You go into it, it's just Hot Topic threw up in it. Like you go in there, just Funko Pops everywhere. They're playing the same like screamo bands. They're playing My Chemical Romance, and what's on the TV? Ghost Adventures or something? I don't know.
We kind of get into the whole Hera situation a little bit when we meet with Rachel, but basically, like, we haven't heard from the gods in a while, and then, you know, after radio silence, suddenly Hera comes and gives a dream vision to find Percy, and is like, oh, look for the man without a shoe, or whatever, a boy without a shoe, and that ends up being Jason and not Percy. Kind of interesting, because she, like, doesn't like Annabeth, and Annabeth doesn't like her, but there's a weird vision that happens there, so they talk a little bit about that, and then they go into Hera's cabin because Piper feels a sort of, I guess, energy there. It's not so much like, oh, wow, this is the cabin I belong, because obviously that doesn't make sense, but more it creeped her out even more than the other cabins.
Another thing as well is, like, if I remember this correctly, I read this chapter today, is that she's like, well, if no one's in the Hera cabin, why is it open? Like, there's like that type of like...
Right, yeah, it shouldn't be open because, like, it's not hospitable. It's just it's like a tomb. There's nowhere to sleep.
Yeah, there's nowhere to sleep, but also at the same time, Annabeth's like, we shouldn't go in there, and like Piper uses the words that Annabeth said, like, you know, we're demigods, we're supposed to take risks. Like, oh, I guess you have a point there. So they go in, and then there's Rachel Elizabeth there. She's just chilling there.
Yeah, she's hanging out behind the statue. So I love this. Can we just say that's what we call growth? Because Annabeth and Rachel are stoked to see each other. They're friends. They're like, Rachel, Annabeth, oh my god. They like run and hug. It's like, wow, so much has changed in a year. They have totally gone from like really like,
frenemies.
Like, yeah, frenemies, like sort of, you know, infighting, catty, like, you know, women hating women, like being, you know, cruel to each other. I mean, that was kind of more on the Annabeth side. Rachel was kind of like, why are you like this? But, you know, it is what it is. But now they're like buddies and everything is fine.
Well, I like that, again, it shows that time can play a huge factor, especially with, like, now that Rachel is a part in the... Well,
right?
Well, that too, but also, like, Percy was kind of like this bridge, and now that Annabeth and Percy are together, like, there is like this weird awkward nature to them, but also at the same time, I'm sure they've talked it out, but also that now that Rachel's the Oracle, Annabeth has to give her like this weird type of like, you know, respect, much
like reverence. Yeah. Also, I think she feels a little less threatened too, because now Percy and her are like officially a thing, and Rachel like was the one who initiated them breaking things off. So like, there's, yeah, and like it's more clear where they stand. Like, she's in a relationship with Percy, Rachel's the Oracle. She kind of never even was interested in Percy in that way because she had, I guess, bigger fish to fry. Pardon the pun, I didn't mean to make a...
It's also like a very positive message if you've read Percy Jackson, because it's like, there are friends that I know that absolutely hate each other, like, just, you know, friends that are girls, for like the minorest things, and they will hold grudges till the day that they die.
Right, yeah, and it's definitely like this sort of like weird, the internalized misogyny perpetuating thing of like just like infighting or fighting over a guy or whatever. And I'm just like really glad that they're past that, because it makes sense that they're friends. Like, they don't have things, like, they have things in common. They're like strong women who like have their own thoughts and feelings, and I don't know, it just felt very silly when they were fighting, so it's like nice to finally see that resolved.
Like, we've talked about this before, and I'll say this again. Rick Riordan has a great time writing female characters. Not so much the relationship part of them, but like when it comes to like their thoughts and feelings and just being like actual people, they aren't just like, oh my god, like boys, and like we're gonna wear pretty dresses. No, they're not like that at all. You can see that with every, like, you asked me about a female character, and like Clarice is very distinct in who she is. She's both, you know, like very macho, but she also has, you know, a feminine side. Look at Thalia, she's the exact same type of way. Look at Annabeth, she has thoughts and feelings, it's very complicated. Rachel's the exact same way. It isn't like they're like stock characters, like, oh, they're here to be for a relationship just because. Like, even Selena, who is, you know, we always perceived her as that, is not that at all, and I love that.
Right, exactly, yeah. Or like, I like Rachel a lot, like you said, because she's introduced very much in a way where she could have been just like Percy Jackson's love interest, and she's so much more than that. Like, she really has her like own trajectory and arc, and part of that is her becoming friends with Annabeth and them kind of like burying the hatchet between the two of them. It's really nice to see.
I think also what makes Rachel a really distinct character, which I love, is that she kept her promise. Like, she goes to boarding school in Connecticut. That was her choice to make, and she made it. And there's things like it isn't like, oh yeah, her dad decided to like say, nah, you can go to whatever school you want to. Like, she's keeping her promises and stuff. Like, I like that there's that.
Right, there are consequences.
There's consequences. Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice to see Rachel, nice to see the two of them getting along, but then, and I also, honestly, Rachel's great. Like, the way that she describes being the Oracle is just really like fun and relatable in a way where she's just like, yeah, it's creepy. I find it creepy too. I kind of predict the future, but like even I don't know what it means. It's more like it channels through me.
I love that the way she describes, like, it feels like I'm being mugged. That's pretty much how she describes it, like she's being held hostage.
Right, yeah, so she doesn't like know what anything means any more than anyone else.
I feel like that would also be like really depressing at the exact same time because she doesn't have control over her body in this way of like, it just it's like almost like the best way to put it. Yeah, it's
kind of creepy, but you know, she's sort of submitted to it.
I'm not saying this is like kind of like someone that has like epilepsy or something. She has to be careful where she is and stuff in case she has like,
right.
It just like it triggers and happens because like she has no control over it. And like, as we see here, it gets creepy and scary. Ooh. So what kind of happens, B?
Right, so, of course, seems fitting that as soon as you track down the Oracle, you can't have a nice casual conversation. She's gotta have a spooky prophecy channeled through her. In this case, it's not like a full-on prophecy, it's just a voice or a vision.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Free me, Piper McLean, or the earth shall swallow us. It must be by the solstice our enemies stir. The fiery one is only the first. Bow to his will, and their king shall rise, dooming us all. Free me! Yeah,
not quite a full type of prophecy with the rhyming scheme or anything, but it's still spooky. The solstice, so that's the winter solstice, that did not already happen in one of the books? I forget.
B, that was in the Titan's Curse with the winter
Titan's
solstice.
Curse, that was the one.
Because remember they have to bring back Artemis?
Yes.
And now we're going to be going on a brand new quest. Ooh. But again, like, Piper can't really take it all that much, and she passes out because she's had a lot today, and this is her brain saying, nah.
Yep, and that's where the chapter ends, so that's kind of where our little frame ends, these two chapters from Piper's perspective. She's gone through a lot. Really going through it bullet point by bullet point makes you appreciate why she passes out. Like, I know that it's specifically because of the vision that happens, but just the death by 1,000 cuts, the girl can't catch a break. Just really, it's been a bad day.
It's been a bad year, really. So B, what is going to be happening next? Our next POV character is going to be Leo, and in this chapter we find out that he goes to the Hephaestus cabin. What do you think is going to happen?
Oh, geez. I mean, I'm interested to see what a chapter is going to look like with Leo, because he's kind of more of like a comedic relief character. Yeah, and like you don't quite get that type of, perspective in PJO in the same way, where it's like the comedic relief you like get bits and pieces of, but to like actually get into like his internal thought processes would be interesting. Also, like it's been mentioned that he has ADHD. I mean, I guess technically every demigod has it. Is it every demigod or some
All
of them?
All
But
of
it's
them.
like a big part of his personality. He's already mentioned it. He's like wisecracking. He can't like sit still. He has like these certain behaviors about him, which I think will like influence how he interacts with other people.
You're either going to have annoying chapters or chapters that are just basically me talking to you. It's like one or the other, B. And it's kind of like, let's do this catch-22. So I am interested to see that. So next week we are going to be reading chapter 5 and 6 of Leo. So that's going to be really exciting. B, are you ready to read some listener emails?
I sure am.
The person's email just says chicken nuggies, and I'm going to say that's fine.
That sounds familiar. Did that person also review us on iTunes, or is that
I'm sure they did. I'm sure it's probably chalky milk and chicken nuggies. So the email says, I was so excited to hear your first thoughts on Heroes of Olympus. It's my favorite series. My favorite book from that series is Mark of Athena. My favorite character is Leo. I've been listening to your podcast for about a year now. I also love your analysis each chapter. Also, after hearing the emails from your last episode, I want to give Kane Chronicles some love because I really loved it. Keep staying immortal. Thank you so much, Chicken Nuggies. We really appreciate that. Now, get some chalky milk right on me. I'll give you some drachmas.
Is Kane Chronicles going to be the new Heroes of Olympus, where we're going to get like an email?
It's either been Kane Chronicles or Magnus Chase. I don't know what we're gonna do next. We will get there in like 6 years. So
yeah, listen, guys. We just started this book series.
You can say that, but by the end of it, we might be like, oh man, we might switch it up and go to like something different for a little bit.
Well, we might talk about that.
So B, did we get any other emails?
Okay, so we got a bit of a longer email that says, Hi, Zach and B. I'm a 12-year-old sixth grader in Illinois, though many have mistaken me for a high schooler. I have been reading the Percy Jackson books since third grade, and I'm constantly rereading all the PJO books, even if I should be reading something else for school. I have just recently caught up on your podcast. I've been binging during quarantine, and used this as motivation to catch up soon so I could email you. I was confused that you hadn't posted in 2 weeks, but then saw your Twitter page saying you were taking a vacation. A virtual one, I assume, but I hope it was relaxing to sit back after reading an entire book series a chapter a week. Kudos to Zach for not spoiling anything. I wouldn't have lasted a month. B as well. I'm sure I would have read ahead at some point. I know how you didn't really like the series to begin with. I can relate. My mom, she's Scottish, had been pestering me to read it for over a month. My friend said her mom was trying to get her to read it as well, so we ended up reading the first series together. She stopped there, but I kept going and read To Heroes of Olympus along with all the side series, admittedly not detailedly, seeing as I read them in a short span of time. I did go back and reread them. Anyway, Zach had said in one of the earlier episodes that he wouldn't be surprised if people went to the St. Louis Arch or the Hoover Dam more after reading these books. Fun fact, I made my family go to the Hoover Dam when we were on the West Coast last summer. I made sure to wear my Camp Half-Blood t-shirt. I have also been to the Arch with my family when I was in second grade before I read the books. I would consider myself artistic, and Red, or Rachel Elizabeth Dare, is probably my favorite character of the first series, with Talia coming in a close second. I do ship Percabeth, but in retrospect, I realized that Rachel was probably better for Percy. I don't know if I agree with that. In the Heroes of Olympus series, my favorite by far goes to Leo. I drew some fan art, but it isn't the best. The first picture is of the red-headed serial killer by the name Red.
Can I read this? Because it sounds great.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The second is of Leo McShizzle, Bad Boy Supreme. Oh, God, I can't say it with a straight face.
Yep.
B, have you ever said Bad Boy Supreme to anything in your life?
No, I have not, but maybe I'll start saying it.
Is that what you're going to say to your boyfriend?
Bad Boy Supreme. And Red together. They are both third wheels, so it is a conversation I can imagine happening if they meet. That's so funny. I don't think Rachel's ever been a third wheel. I think Rachel is her own car. I'll keep working on it because I don't think it looks that great. You don't have to put yourself down.
No,
I'm sure
it's great. It's great.
Did you link it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look on it after. I first got into podcasts because my brother was constantly complaining about being behind on his. He's 16 And it's hard to believe that the cast of the first series is his age at the end, and I am the age Percy was at the beginning, 12. Weird. At first, I thought podcasts were boring, and anyone who was willing to listen to strangers blab on for an hour plus was crazy. Once I was recommended this podcast from a friend, though, I was proved wrong. Your guys' podcast is entertaining, informative, and overall the best damn podcast, without the N, I've ever listened to. At home, I'm often found listening to your podcast with a knowing smile on my face, with the occasional laugh, and getting weird looks from my parents and sister while I try to tune out the outside world and focus on you guys' voices and picture a world without normal siblings. That is when I'm doing homework, playing music, or reading. It's weird that when you look at the PJO universe, there are so few siblings. They're so lucky. I myself want to be an architect like Annabeth and an artist like Rachel.
That's great.
The characters have definitely been a big influence on who I want to be in the future. I owe so much to Rick and you guys for making this fandom what it is now. His books and your comments are true works of art. Oh, that's so nice.
Oh, that's going to make me cry.
They have more than enough made up for the movie disaster. It's nice to know that only one interpretation of PJO is so messed up and not more. Buckle up, buddy.
Buckle up, buckaroos.
I have done a bit of fanfic writing as well, though it's not great. You don't have to put yourself down. Again, I'm sure it's great. If I ever really try working on it and put more effort into it, I might want to publish. If I'm ever in need of OCs, I'd love to have you guys become characters with permission, of course. Thanks for reading this long email, whether allowed or not. Thanks, you guys. Stay mortal and keep horsing around. A clear-sighted mortal. P.S. Okay, so you know the app Zoom that everyone is using during this pandemic?
Yeah.
Well, this is something my brother made up. You know how there's boomers, Gen X, Xennials, millennials, and Gen Zs. Well, now my generation is to be called Zoomers. Say hi to your friend group and your friend Interruptus for me. I think Zoomers was already a thing, actually, before.
Yeah, it was already a thing.
So your brother didn't make that one up. That was already a phrase. So I guess
that was already a thing. Yeah.
People were 12 now, so that's
Gen Z.
Gen Z. Yeah.
So
Gen Z and Zoomers are the same thing. I'm pretty sure.
Like, I'm on, like, the weird cusp between, I guess, Gen Z and millennial, so I'm just pretty much a millennial because I'm not that weird.
Yes, you're basically a millennial because you're what, like 2 years younger than me, right?
Yeah, I'm 2 years younger than you. The cutoff is 1995, and I'm just like, that was round down. That's fine.
Yeah. Wait, when were you born? 95? Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
But when it comes down to this email, we really appreciate all the very kind words. We love when we get interactions like this, how much Percy Jackson means to you, especially during quarantine when you get a chance to read, listen, and laugh. And also, I'm not sure, but siblings are kind of awesome. I like my sister. Me and her talk about things like Tiger King, and I think that's all we talk about really now. Yeah. She's in the other room, but that's about it. So
yeah, I like this email a lot because it was so reminiscent of the specific way I was at 12 when I was obsessed with a series of unfortunate events. This, just like even the fact that you said that you were often mistaken for a high schooler because you're probably a precocious kid who really likes to read, and you know what? That's cool. I bet we have a lot of listeners like that.
See, B always got mistaken for like a Victorian pickpocketer.
The thing is, when I was young, people thought I was old, and then now that I'm older, people think I'm 12. So it's like truly a topsy-turvy world. Now I'm growing a mustache, so like who knows what age people will think I am.
Wow, look at that small person.
That small child looks terrible. Stop burning the candle at both ends, young man.
There's a lot of great to this, and I love, like, you can use this for OCs if you want to show us more art. We love art. Again, this is the most important thing about both art and architecture. It's very subjective. So when it comes to it, you might have the best art in the world, and as long as you love it, that's all that matters. Don't listen to anyone else.
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good artwork. Oh, you shouldn't put yourself down. That's really good.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
See, I was like expecting like a stick figure. You're talking it down so much. That's great.
I can't even do that, like, wholeheartedly.
Yeah, you're 12 and you're like drawing like full on characters. That's very impressive. Good job.
Especially being like wanting to be like an architect. Kick butt doing that. Build like the new Empire State Building.
That's really cool. Thank you for sending us your very lovely email and also your fan art. Just keep that confidence though. There were a couple times where you like talked on your writing and your art, and you shouldn't do that. I'm sure it's really good. If your art is any indication, I'm sure your fanfic is also good.
So I have an email, and this one's from Izzy, a longtime listener and emailer, because I've noticed their name several times. This didn't send a few weeks ago, so I'm resending it, and congrats to B for starting T. Dear Zach and B, it is I, Lizzie, and I love emailing, and I'm going crazy during this quarantine. I'm a junior in high school with a stepsister and 5 foster siblings, so it's really hard in Nebraska. We're not quarantined, but my mom won't let us leave because my grandpa lives with us. And by the time you get this, I'll have not left the house in 6 weeks. I think we've had this for a while, so it might be like 7 at this point.
Yeah, no, it's been a while. I remember I think you sent screenshots of this to me a little while ago, because now, who knows how long we've been indoors, you guys. Indoors.
Take it away, Penny!
Exactly.
Anyways, in the last episode, you guys were talking about believing in the gods. When I was first read them, I did too. And here's my reason. I never really had a dad.
Oh.
And in the 6th grade, that's hard to deal with. So I thought I was secretly a demigod. My dad wasn't really around because he was a god. He was on Olympus and couldn't talk to me. And he was Poseidon. I tried everything to prove it, but it didn't work. LOL. Sorry for the long email. Sincerely, the Nebraska girl, Izzy. Oh, that is a very, very sweet email.
That is a very sweet email. Hey, you have not ruled out that you're not related to a demigod. Who knows? Listen, everybody, waiting for their Hogwarts letter, or I guess, I don't know, unfortunate events kids waiting for a banker to tell them their house burned down.
Oh, B, I'm waiting for both of those. I'm waiting for my Hogwarts letter the same day.
Right, it's like, oh, well, house gone. Hogwarts is my new...
I'm starting to see the pros and cons to this. Now I'm going to get all those galleons, so I'll be able to, use it from my parents' life insurance policy and then be chased by a wizard count. Just imagine if Count Olaf had magic. That would be a nightmare.
Oh, I mean, I feel like there's an equivalent in Harry Potter of Olaf with magic, right? There's a lot of gross Death Eaters who are similar.
He just like flame magic and just burns all the things. Oh God, no! This is bad.
Not great.
I actually, know what? I'd love like a weird fan fiction of Count Olaf meeting Voldemort and just that weird type of interaction of 2 Richards meeting, and one of them is just a drunken buffoon while the other one's like a wizard Nazi.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Hey, that's why I want this fan fiction to happen.
So this is a very short and sweet email from Ava, who says, "Hi, Zach and B. I just found your podcast, and right now I am on the 8th episode. I love your podcast. I hope that you keep on making more episodes." I tripped up on one of those words, and it was only like 2 sentences, but thank you for your email. I think this person recently followed me on Twitter, because the name is ringing a bell.
I'm sure they did, because we've gotten... In like the past 48 hours, we've gotten like over 50 new followers, and I've gotten a bunch of new followers on Twitter for some weird reason, as if something was announced or something. I don't know, some weird thing.
Yeah, some important something or other.
Yeah, who's to say, B? Who's to say? So thank you so much for that lovely email. We really appreciate it. B, we got an iTunes review. Are you ready for this? 5 stars, history lover. Oh my God, this is so good. Please, after Heroes of Olympus, do Magnus Chase, or Trials of Apollo, or The Kane Chronicles. Oh, it's like a choose your own adventure story now. Also, my favorite book is Son of Neptune, and my second favorite is The Last Olympian. Love your podcast so much.
What is Son of Neptune? What series is that from?
I don't know.
It's not Heroes of Olympus, right?
Could be.
Could
I don't
be.
know.
You're like, don't even want to spoil me with the name. Oh, there's a Son of Neptune. Shh, we don't even want to. Don't think about it.
So we got another one that's pretty good. I think this is good, but it could be even better. I also think you should read Magnus Chase next. Your worst nightmare. Thank you.
Why our worst nightmare? A lot of exclamation points there.
Yeah, there are. I think that kind of wraps up our show for this week. B, it almost seems like we're missing something kind of big.
Important news or something like that.
Once B, you know what the most? Oh, I got it. I got it. B. It's my birthday next month. That's the big news. Happy birthday, everybody.
Oh yeah. I thought the big news was I made pudding. It
You made pudding? Oh
very
my
good.
god.
I think you got it in my head the other day when you messaged me for a rice pudding recipe, and I was like, that sounds pretty lit. I'm gonna make that. It was very good.
But you know what my favorite news of this week was? It was pretty big. Rick Riordan made a really bomb recipe for guacamole.
It's true.
Yeah.
He does not put tomatoes. I disagree. I like the addition of the tomatoes.
Well, see, the issue though is like I was trying to make the guacamole, but it required Disney Plus, and also Percy Jackson's gonna be there. I'm like, I don't have that yet.
No.
But it's coming soon.
Yeah. And avocados, they brown so quickly.
They do. So yeah, so the big news, guys, is that Percy Jackson is gonna be on Disney Plus as a live action streaming show. And that's really weird to us because we were not prepared for this in the slightest. But we're excited nonetheless.
Yeah, this is kind of a big deal. Good timing. We finished all of PJO, so I'm raring to go for a TV series, though I assume the first season is just going to be
The Lightning
Thief, yeah. And who knows when that's going to get filmed. Timeline to be determined, but I'm really excited. It's going to be cool. I feel like a part of this fandom now. Who would have thought after over 2 years and going to the musical twice and meeting people related to the musical and the book. Yeah, it's exciting. I'm trepidatious. I know this feeling well from when I did Unfortunate Associates, and you have this property that you like get attached to. I'm not as attached to like the look and the feel of Percy Jackson, I would say, than Unfortunate Events, because I like grew up with that, and that's like implanted in my brain. But I do have like, some feelings about characters and how they should be portrayed and everything. So it's gonna be interesting. I mean, it's a ways away, but it's very exciting.
So for me, like I have an affinity for Percy Jackson, and like I was there when the movie came out, and I was just like, oh god. So I'm taking this as much as the Avatar: The Last Airbender live action series. I'm taking this with a grain of salt, but at the exact same time, I'm looking at Series of Unfortunate Events. I'm looking at The Golden Compass, or I guess His Dark Materials, because they're filming the rest of them. And like, okay, we were 2 for 2. Still waiting for the Wheel of Time one, so I'm holding my breath for a lot of things. But I'm excited to see this, especially like seeing some of my favorite characters again on the big screen, or I guess in this case, probably a very small screen. And it's more interesting, like for me, what I love about this is that it's gotten everyone out of the frickin' woodworks, like friends that I haven't talked to for a while started texting me. And like,
sure. Everyone's like, did you hear the news? That happened, I think, about the Unfortunate Events TV show. I haven't really heard from people about this adaptation, I think, because I knew the news first and I already told them. So they're like, oh.
Yeah, there's that. Like, there was friends like, oh, I grew up with in high school and stuff that read Percy Jackson, and they were like really getting excited, and we might end up having a watch party like when it happens. So that will be fun. Like I'll probably make like a Percy Jackson themed night. Who knows what's gonna happen? But we're going to be having something very special on Wednesday. We're actually going to be having a panel with the majority of all the Percy Jackson podcasts out there, and we're going to be talking about this.
Right, so that's kind of when you're going to get more of our extended thoughts on the matter, adaptation thoughts, character thought, like really, in depth.
Like if I was to talk about like just very briefly before we end, our show isn't going to like change significantly based off of it. Like we're going to keep steadfast in like our book reviews. We're going to keep steadfast in like, what we're trying to do, our whole goal of it. When the show comes out, we haven't decided what we're going to do yet. Are we going to take a break from doing the regular reading part and just focus on Percy Jackson part because that's big?
Right, or maybe record some episodes ahead for
posterity's sake, so we always keep something.
And then
our goal is to maybe have some surprises. Who knows what could happen? People could pop in, monsters. It'd be weird to have like Tyson here. Hey guys, I'm Tyson. Tyson, don't eat my mic. Here's some peanut butter. You love peanut butter.
Uncles, even.
Uncles, that'd be interesting too. Yeah. Yeah. Who knows?
Uncles named Richard.
Oh, yeah, Richard Riordan.
That sounds so wrong. Like, that just doesn't sound correct at all.
It sounds fake. It sounds like that's Rick's evil twin, Richard Riordan.
Yeah, he has like a different weird mustache. Like Waluigi.
No, he has like a goatee. It's like the mirror universe of Spock.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm evil and I write Jackson Percy.
Everybody knows that really the evil version of Rick Riordan is J.K. Rowling.
I guess so, yeah, a little bit. In every way, shape, or form. Well, we're excited. We're going to be having Thoughts and Feelings on Wednesday. That will be dropping that day, or within subsequently. If there's any issues, we'll let you guys know. We are excited. We will keep you guys updated. Obviously, when a trailer happens, we'll be blabbering on about it. And if there's news, if it's significant, we'll talk about it on the show if it comes apparent. But we just want to let you guys know that, we're going to be keeping the same. We're all excited. We're going to talk about it. We're going to be honest about it too. Like, we're not going to be like, wow, gee willikers. If it's bad, we'll talk about it. If it's good, we'll talk about it. So, B, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at bkellygorman, and you can find me on Tumblr at twinpoetry.tumblr.com.
If you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at Suda41. That's SUDA41. If you want to follow our show on Twitter, that's at halfblood_radio. If you want to email the show, you can email us at radiocamphapblood@gmail.com. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/radiocamphapblood. We also have t-shirts available on TeePublic, so just go to www.tpublic.com for some t-shirts. And thank you guys so much for listening to another amazing episode of Radio Camp Half-Blood. I'm Zach.
I'm B.
And let's keep staying mortal. See ya.
Bye, guys.